Hello, Ed with Slow Car Fix. Today I'm going to be working on a friend of mine's 63 Corvair Monza. One of the things I'm going to be doing on this car is an oil change. And there are a few little differences between changing oil on a Corvair versus changing oil on some other cars in this vintage. So I thought I would take you guys along and show you the tools I use, what I do, and the few things that are just a little bit different than any other oil change. I thought I would start by showing you the tools I use and the things I need to change the oil on this car. This car is a 63, but it has a 65 engine in it, and the 65 manual will suffice for all Corvair stuff anyways. It seems that I have 65 manuals around, so that's what I use. You will need a Ziploc bag for the oil filter. I will show you that. You'll need a light fender cover that we've got sitting on here. You're going to need some oil, set of gloves, a filter. This one's from Clark's Corvair. You will need a 1/2-inch wrench for the oil filter. You'll need a socket, an extension, and a torque wrench to torque the oil filter. And then this car's drain pan plug is a 7/8. So I have a 7/8 socket and ratchet and a torque wrench to retorque the oil drain pan bolt. Now I do have on my 64 that's on the shop side, it has a 3/4 inch, so you're going to want to check that before you go get all your tools out. The other thing obviously you're going to need is you need 5 quarts of oil. You need a drain pan. The owner of this car provided her own oil. She uses AMSOIL Z-Rod 10W30 with zinc. There is different oil for different applications. Everyone has an opinion on oil. I'm not going to get into that in this video. But what I would recommend is that you check out Corvair Center forums, as there are a few people that definitely go into the details of what oil is best for their application and what oil they use. This has been a good choice for Sharon. Another one that I use is Shell Rotella, but please research the oil that you are going to use before you use it and make your own selection on that. Okay, as you can see, I've got the engine bay open. This car, as I mentioned, has a later model engine in it. This is the 1/2-inch bolt that I was talking about that we're going to torque later on when we change this filter. This is also where we are going to take advantage of using that Ziploc bag. I'm going to put the Ziploc bag around the filter and undo the filter, and that way no oil is going to get down here. It's just going to go in the bag, and then I can discard it. Then, this is your oil fill, engine oil fill, and this is your dipstick. Okay, so the 63 is jacked up and on jack stands, and the wheels are chocked. First thing I'm going to do for this oil change is I'm going to remove the cap. This one's nice and tight. A little tech tip I learned from Dave Binney. If your cap doesn't fit tight, it'll vent and potentially blow oil out the side of the cap. So what you do is you take it to a bench and you give these little tangs a tap, and it tightens it up because you want a good seal on that. The other thing is, if this cork isn't here or is in poor condition, it will leak. And what you can do is the perimeter seal on these cars, if you're ever replacing them, it's always good. They always come with extra, and it's good to save a little bit. I'll show you what it looks like. It looks like this. It's got like a fiber material in it. It always comes with about 6-8 inches extra. So what you can do is you can save those extra pieces for if you do an oil change and you come across this gasket not being there. You can use that in this oil cap, and it actually does a nice seal. So I'll go into the car now and we'll start draining the oil. So this is looking underneath the car. This here is your engine oil pan. This is your drain plug. This is your bell housing, and your power glide transmission is on the end, and your differential is in between. So you can see drain plug is here. So I will remove this drain plug and drain the oil out into my trusty little pail. Okay. So I hold a little bit of pressure in on this, this drain plug as I'm removing it, so that way it's not dripping out all over me. And then when I think it's near the end, I just move quick like that, and you try and minimize what you're getting all over your hands. Wipe down the drain plug so it's not making a mess everywhere. Check the seal. There's a seal around the drain plug. You check the seal for condition, see that it exists, that it's even there. And then wait. Always move the pan back, because as it drains out, the arc is going to change and it's going to come back. And quite often people will set their pan where it starts to go, and then by the time it's done draining, it's on the floor and your pan isn't catching anything. Okay, while we're waiting for the oil to drain, we'll change the filter. So you want a Ziploc bag. You want it to be sufficient enough that it can get in size, that it can get around the oil filter, so you're not making a big giant mess. And once again, I always have a paper towel handy. Take your 1/2-inch wrench, crack that. So I like a ratcheting wrench because I only have 2 hands, and you hold pressure on the bottom of the oil filter while you loosen this bolt off. So the filter doesn't go flying. So you remove the bolt and the washer. Set that aside. And then carefully and slowly remove your oil filter. Careful not to make a giant mess, and then I usually just give this a pat dry underneath to make sure it's not dripping all over the car. So, another thing you're going to want to look for is you're going to want to see this seal is here, because sometimes this seal will stick to the oil filter housing, and then somebody will install it, a new filter, and end up with a double seal, and it won't seal properly. So you want to make sure that that seal is still intact on the old oil filter that you're removing. There's other videos out there on YouTube about cutting a filter apart and looking for filings and stuff like that. I'm not concerned with that right now. This is just routine maintenance on a engine that's maybe got 10,000 miles on it. So now what I'll do is I'll take this over to my oil bucket that I have in the shop, and I will flip this upside down and then let it drain out. Once it's drained out, I can zip this up and then put it with my pile of oil filters that I take to my local transfer station. So I'll take this time now to prep my new filter from Clark's Corvair Parts. You can get that on their website, is where I ordered the stuff from. There's the seal I was talking about. You don't want a double one, but you do want to make sure that the seal is intact. Just do a quick look over the filter. Make sure these holes are open, because not for quite some time, but they used to have a problem that sometimes these holes wouldn't get punched. So you want to check that. Also, don't discard the box right away, because your seal that goes on your bolt, I'll show you that in a minute, it's in that box. So Another thing I like to do, I think it was Jim DL showed me this. He writes down the mileage. I just write down the month and the year. So it's April right now, 2021. It just gives you an idea. Sharon only has the one Corvair, but I've got a few, and it helps me keep track of when things were changed. Like I said, I don't really get concerned about putting mileage on it because I find most of these cars are changing them out on time rather than on mileage. So I'm going to take this AMSOIL and I'm going to fill this filter. You want the filter full. You don't want any empty parts of the system when you first start it up. And then I take a little bit of this residual oil on the top and put it around the seal. The inner seal has some from where I was just pouring it, but you want to put it around the rubber seal. It keeps the rubber pliable, and it's just always good practice. So this is an important part on Corvairs. They come with this fiber washer. People often can't figure where that goes. And it actually goes between the bolt and this housing. It doesn't go underneath. Some people think it goes underneath, and that's a bad mistake because then that rubber seal won't seal. So it's important that it goes between the bolt and the filter, or sorry, between the bolt and the housing. So I'm going to remove our old fiber washer. Just give our bolt a quick wipe. Clean out any of the stuff out of the threads. Throw our fiber washer in and slide that down so it's just resting on there. Then I'll get the filter. So now that I've wrote the date there, I'm going to have that so I can see it. Carefully make sure it's centered. And you want to just be able to hand thread this bolt in. You don't want to be, you should be able to run the threads right down by hand and not need a wrench just yet. So then what I do is I'll take the same ratchet wrench and I'll just give it a little bit of a snug. And then it's time to torque it. So in my 65 chassis manual in the back is torque values. I have these circled because I do them all the time. So we know the oil drain plug is going to be 30 to 35 foot-pounds when it's done draining. The oil filter is 15 to 20 foot-pounds. People often will either over-torque or under-torque this. Not a good idea either way. If it's under-torqued, your filter will come loose. If it's over-torqued, you'll stretch the threads and the filter can also leak. It's a bad deal. Okay, so I've set my torque wrench to 18 foot-pounds, which is right in the middle of the range. I'll just give this guy a little click. Okay, that's torqued. Okay, so now we have our drain plug installed. I'm going to move my drain pan out of the way and then I'll torque it. Okay, drain pan is torqued, drain plug is torqued. I'm going to go ahead and take the car down off the jack stands and then I can fill it full of oil. Okay, so now I'll proceed with filling the crankcase. Now the nice thing about these little 1 liter or 1 quart jugs is that you don't really need a funnel for a Corvair. You just need to make sure that you don't lose this ring into the oil fill. It won't go all the way down, but you kind of got to watch for it. So that's about 4 quarts there now. So what I'll do is I'll check it and see where we're at on the dipstick. Just give the dipstick a wipe. Okay, so I'm almost at the full mark. I'll put the cap back on, start it up, and wait for the oil pressure temperature light to go off, and then I'll know that everything is cycled, and I'll check it again and top it up from there. Okay, now that I've run it and the temperature and pressure light has gone off, I'm going to check the oil again, and I'll have to add what's left. So once again, just a wipe. And now it's just above the add line, so I'm going to put in part of a quart, and I'll just keep checking it. I'll fill it up a little bit and check it, and fill it up a little bit and check it, because I don't want to go over the full line. Okay, so I have the level at where I want it to be. It took about 4.5 quarts with a stock oil pan. That's typical. So I will check the oil one more time. And where I want it to be is just below the full line. And that's right where it is. It's just below the full line. Okay, so that's your basic Corvair oil change. You should do this. I'm in Canada, so typically we do it spring and fall, depending on use. I do like to store with fresh oil and then change again in the spring in case there's condensate and stuff. It's a bunch of different opinions on that, but that's usually the way I do it on my own cars. And on customers and friends' cars, it's up to them when they want me to change it. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Things to remember with your oil change is to torque your filter and torque your drain plug. Everything on a car has a torque value, particularly Corvairs. It's very important with things like oil pan bolts and anything like the top cover bolts. Don't just hand tight them. There's a torque for them. Valve cover gaskets, the valve covers have a torque. It's important. The valve cover torque and the oil pan torque are in inch-pounds, and it's a very light torque, and you can quickly over-torque them and they'll always leak. So it's important to torque your filter. The other thing that is, Sharon lives about an hour from me, so when she drives us home, I always tell her, when you get home, give that oil filter bolt a check. Just stick a wrench on it, just give it just a little snug to make sure it's still torqued when she gets where she's going. Chances are it won't move, but it can back off, and if it backs off, it's a problem. So thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you want to see other Corvair content or anything else, let me know. I'm not really into doing how-to stuff. I'm usually just showing the stuff that I'm doing along the way, not necessarily professing on how it's done. But this is how I would do an oil change, obviously. And this is how I do oil changes on my own cars, and I probably do a dozen of them a year or so. So it's the same procedure for all of them. The only thing that would change is that I find sometimes the drain plug is a different size. And I find if you have a finned aluminum oil pan, it's going to take more oil. So that's good to know. Other than that, stay safe, enjoy your cars, and thanks for watching.